You're not going to tell me, are you?
I don't take any medicine. I don't take any medicine.
Oh, okay. All right.
No medicines here.
Hmm.
So how was your you've got a lot of news I need to catch up on. So how was your Sunday night?
Yeah. One word was good. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect. All right, and there were I forgot now. I think I don't know. I can't remember how many people there were. Sue, do you remember? I told you how many people were on Sunday night.
300 was it?
Oh, was it? It was about 150 people. Okay.
Wow.
And yeah, and that was from all over Australia. And they started off. It was. I suppose in hindsight, when I look back at it, it's a gathering of Simon Parkes's supporters or followers or whatever. I don't know what you call them, that listen to his news bulletins and things. And it's called Collective Consciousness. That's his website, and so it took me a bit of time to settle in, and everybody had to have their video on, and then I think 10 minutes after starting, they lock the Zoom so nobody else can come in, and they then were just chatting about subjects, and after about 15 minutes or so, I thought, is this for me? And I thought, let me just stick it out. I'm here once. Anyway, it went on for 2 hours.
Wow.
But the second half was far more interesting, because every single person that spoke, and people spoke at random. There wasn't an agenda or so on and so forth. So they jumped to various subjects and so on. But everybody that spoke and said something, I could identify with.
Right. Okay.
Now that I found interesting. That I agree about that maybe about the pineal gland and that about energy coming from the universe and whatever it was, and very anti-vaccine, where we know that, and some more scientific proof, and also how the facts have been hidden here in Australia. Remember, these are all Australians. A lot of the people present were nurses, and the nurses had formed, along with a lot of doctors, the truth about vaccines. Okay, so there's quite a large number, and when people come into the hospitals in Australia with side effects, they get sent home and told not to talk about it. Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Now these are nurses that are telling us this that's their instructions, and so it's just there.
So is this vaccines in general, or more specifically the corona vaccine?
No, only the corona vaccine. Only the corona vaccine, and also they spoke about from different companies as well, of the vaccines and so on. So, but I knew all that, so I didn't try and sort of take it in and remember it, because that wasn't new to me. In fact, nothing they said was new to me, but I was intrigued that they think like me. Okay. Now, I've never met a group that think like me. No ways does Logos think like me. I mean, it's not a religious group particularly, and Elytra certainly doesn't think like me. But all these people did. Okay. And there were people, not only from Perth, but from Brisbane and Sydney and all over the place. And I thought, and the ones here in Western Australia, from time to time meet. okay, physically meet, okay, and have a picnic or something, or go and go to the park or something. And so I'm not quite sure how that works. They work through an app called Meetup.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, at some point in the future, I probably will.
Mm-hmm.
But I came away after the 2 hours feeling, thank God I've found other people, besides you and I, that chat about these things. Here are other people that will chat about them.
Mm-hmm.
And they probably all come from different angles and things. So that holds good for the future. I don't know whether I would go through 2 hours every Sunday evening, and I will just see. But I've now found their Telegram link, which I never had before, and so that seems to be a little bit busy for me. And I've got the one that's just Simon Parkes, that just anything that he is putting through. This one is a general, for all. Remember that one we had before where I said I couldn't handle any, a larger one, yeah. I couldn't handle anymore, so I just, resigned from that one. It looks like this could be the same. I'm just going to give it a chance to see what sort of stuff goes on. I mean, between going to bed at night and waking up, maybe lunchtime the next day, there are like 100 posts and on that particular one. And but they were individuals, so I haven't even started to look at it because I've been busy today. But yeah, so overall, happy with it.
And so with the large number of people like that on the Zoom call, how do they manage, who gets to speak and who doesn't and all that sort of stuff?
There's a person who's in charge of Australia, okay, a woman, and it's her meeting, and she first of all requests that anybody has any questions that they send them in before, and then so now she has those questions, okay. So that's one aspect. The other is when the meeting starts, if anybody wants to ask a question or want to make a statement, okay, they then put up their Zoom hand, okay, and then she's got a pencil and paper and she notes down, sort of order the priority, then the hands coming up, and then she said, right, and people are allowed to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes, okay. And some of them extended that, especially some of the guys. They couldn't get their stuff into 3 minutes, but she's not paranoid about that, okay? And she does interrupt if people are repeating themselves very politely. We heard you the first time. Understand that. Anybody want to respond or something like that? And then around that topic or that hand up, people then can respond. And then when that's done, the next hand that was up. So that's how she managed.
So do they get into vigorous debates about things, or is it just basically just commentary?
There was virtually no debates. Everybody agreed with everybody else. Okay, and but they would enhance it. Somebody would say, I watched this video from this particular whoever, and somebody else said, when he had finished, I watched his second one, and he then went on to say this, so they would add on to perhaps what they said, or something similar that was said somewhere, sort of, and but there was no real disagreement. I'm just trying to think, yeah, and people were freely, somebody said they had some, I don't know, immune system problem or something, and there were a couple of, as I said, alternative doctors there as well as ordinary doctors, but there was a naturopath there, and he was saying, lemon skins and grapefruit skins. I've got the recipe of cooking that together. That will absolutely solve your problem, whatever it was. And just ask me if you want the recipe. I'll give it to you. Okay. And so things like that, that I don't know. I felt that was there's, can I say, a far more feeling of community than I felt either in Logos or in Alatra.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, at Alatra, you know, every posting is a pretty girl on the picture, and
Did you have a sense that there's any sort of agenda, or is it just basically just freewheeling discussion?
the agenda of the actual meeting or the
group?
No, I didn't think there was any agenda. Obviously, the latest things that Simon Parkes had spoken about, that automatically became of interest to everybody, and so that was mentioned quite often from different angles. And I asked a question that couldn't answer. I said, Simon Parkes had said about the quantum finance system, everything you Google and you find, 99% of it is people do not understand what it is, and they're talking nonsense about when they're trying to explain it. But he said this person, he mentioned the name, he said is the scientist behind this, because this quantum financial has a consciousness. And I really didn't understand that, and it intrigued me. So I wanted to get more, but none of them had actually heard the name, okay, because it was like maybe 3 or 4 posts ago, and it was an audio as well. I was listening to the audio, and so they couldn't tell me about it, and nobody could tell me anything about the quantum financial system consciousness. Okay, so I'll wait my time and find out, you know, the right. I've tried to Google it and came 101 explanations, but none of them seem to. They all seem to be linked to, you know, computer programming, which is not. I mean, it's got nothing to do with computer programming. Anyway, yeah. So to answer your question, it was good. Okay.
Oh, I'm pleased. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, feel free as well. I mean, it's not limited to anybody. Okay, just that you join and just give them your name and website, and then when you come onto the Zoom, your full name must be and your video must be there, and that's all. Just to make sure that you're real, you know. Because basically now I've given up all the others over the past year or 2 years that I've been getting the information from, because when I stumbled on Simon Parkes, I just had a warm feeling about it, and you know, and he's so unassuming, and you know, he just talks. He's got contacts very, very deep into the American scene, although he's British and he lives in Britain. That was an interesting thing that said that his organization is going to set up, like, what do they call them? Like clinics, okay, medical clinics, okay, when the time is right, and it's not far away, and let me just get this right. The American Defense Force, or the American, one of the defense, I'm not sure if it's the Navy or the Air Force or whether it's the combination of them, they have something called a med bed. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Okay, not likely to have heard of it, because it's they've had it for definitely more than a year. It's 100% alien technology.
Okay.
And they've had it there, and they've been using it extensively to heal children that have now come out of the earth and been molested and things. So they've been using it for that. Okay, but they're going to put them into these clinics. Okay, and more than that wasn't said. It sort of implied that the bed has the energies and the frequencies or whatever it is, to identify, analyze, and do the healing. Okay, that's a little bit of my speculation as well. But yeah, it just sounded like wow. Okay, and the American military will be the only ones that will deliver the beds, okay, to anywhere in the world. They're going to first deliver them and set up clinics in America, North America. And then, interestingly, the next country they will go to is South Africa.
Wow.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. Wow, okay. That sort of was, for no particular reason. And apparently, Australia has a problem. There's a blockage with the I don't know, whatever the medical man of parliament is here, that he's very much a black hat and very strong in that, and they've already blocked any discussion about med beds. Okay. So more than that wasn't said, okay, and that came from the group. I don't know who it was in the group and so forth, but I guess probably somebody that might be in Parliament that's in the group, because there were definitely all sorts in this group. So that was it.
That's fascinating. Oh, no, sounds good.
Yeah, it is fascinating.
And so, in terms of your ongoing participation, so you listen to, what does he do, like a podcast or something, does he? Or
he's on Telegram, and he then sends a link, and he does sort of odd postings of news items. Okay, so you'll send maybe this person's news item or that person or this website or something like that, and then probably once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, he does an update from his sources of information. Okay, and that comes usually.
So it's more just like a newsletter rather than him speaking or anything, is it?
What is a newsletter?
No. Well, I mean, how does he communicate his message? Is it through like a podcast, or is it just
it's through a video?
Yeah.
BitChute, and also whatever he does with the video, he usually does with the podcast as well. So it does the audio, and that sometimes it's only the audio, and yeah. So and he, I guess he's got notes. I don't know, but he usually talks for somewhere between half an hour and an hour, just sort of going from this aspect to that aspect, and then he has occasional guests on the. I can't remember the name of that whistleblower. It was a general from the U.S. Defense Force. Just can't think of his name now. And he came on and also chatted, and so yeah, he has some sort of regular guests that come on, and he's linked also to some of the big alternative medias that sort of cover the world. I don't tune into them, so I didn't even know about them. Okay.
And does he basically just talk about current affairs and stuff like that, does he, in effect?
No. What the information you can get elsewhere, he doesn't really talk about. Okay, he talks about what he has been spoken to, and a lot of the things that he gets spoken to, he's not allowed to divulge. He can only sort of talk around that particular subject. He's not allowed to go, straight into the heavy detail. But he can say, that this is going to happen, and inevitably it does. Sometimes there's a 2 weeks different to the sort of date. He says so many things can interfere with dates that he doesn't like talking dates like other people do. But he will talk about, this particular state has recounted, got the results, and there's like I don't know, 500,000 fraudulent votes, okay, which would then in that state turn it. But at the moment, it hasn't been announced. It's going to be announced before Trump's birthday, which is the middle of next month, okay, or sometime next month, I think. I'm not sure. But anyway, by the middle of next month. So, I think the 4th of July is I think that's Independence Day, isn't it? So these things, he's now said that it'll come out before then. When, I don't know. And then as soon as that comes out, then there are going to be 8 other states that are going to now have already gone to that state, examined what's going on, and they might well recount their states as well in the light of this dramatic difference in the tallying. So he gets that sort of information, and he has historically, since I've been listening to him, and things have happened. He says the most imminent thing that is happening right now is the quantum financial system that is already in place. It's been in place since March, and it's busy integrating itself, okay? And already, and he mentioned a number, I think he said 4,000 people high up in the, not just, famous people, but high up in the banking system have already been jailed for fraud, okay? Because this is what this quantum financial system consciousness can track, okay? And it can track fraudulent transactions anywhere in the world. And it's to me, it's just, I just don't understand it, okay? But it is what it is. And I guess there's been help from other sources to get it going. And so he said that's the first thing. He said that needs to happen. And he said this a couple of weeks ago, and it's something I listened to. I think I mentioned it to you, and then, but it came up in this discussion again. But not many people in that room knew much about it at all.
Yeah.
So that's how the start of the settling or the changing. It's going to start with the finance and stop laundering of money and things like that. And then there'll be no money to pay for all these things that are happening. And then, they'll start unraveling, the child and pornographic things and that are running around at the moment. So, yeah, it looks very, very interesting. But my main would be, just watching Simon Parkes on his Telegram, where he just puts out the links, his links and other people's links. And I don't look at all the other people's links, but I try not to miss any of his own links. Okay.
And so what do you think you will get out of it?
Yeah. As you know, I've always had a great interest in planetary, in world, I guess, what's going on an international basis, okay? I have no particular interest in anything local, whether I was in South Africa or here now. I watch the news to see, a lot of accidents and things there, but I watch it for the weather and to get an idea. But I can get that on the internet if I wanted to. But so I hope to get out of it that being kept aware of what is moving forward as maybe the biggest forces that are there for change. Okay, and I had a lot of different sources, but this one seems to be authentic for me, and he talks things that I want to know about. Okay, because I know it's going to influence the entire world, and I can't. Maybe I can. I've now realized through these groups in Australia that maybe I can be part of that. Okay, that because that to me that's about healing, and that really is where I'm at. Is about it's about human beings, putting humans first, and so that's what they do. They're putting humans first, but practically building.
Yeah.
They're going to be building these clinics, setting up these clinics soon. Okay, and he is going to America to supervise a lot of the clinics that are going to be going up. I think he's going over next month, July. Yeah, or was it August? Anyway, in the next couple of months, he's going over, and he's going to be supervising that. But he's only one of the people who's supervising. There are going to be other people. Obviously, you're talking about the American Army or Defense Force, and they've got various people involved. He's just one of the organizations that are getting involved. So yeah. So that's why I'm interested in these clinics, in being practically involved, and feeling like besides sort of other aspects of, let's say, spiritual development, so on, this is something that I can do. Much like Get Set Up too. It's something that I can do to keep me occupied and enjoy it. But one might be able to join up with some people around here in Perth and help set up the clinics, and be involved in what's clearly going to be, I think, the new world, certainly on the medical side.
And so what's your take, though, like with the clearly the extraterrestrial involvement in a lot of this stuff, like with the technologies and so on?
Yeah.
My sense is, like, well, and maybe I have no evidence, so so that's the precursor to everything I say now. I have no evidence, but in terms of the interaction between them and people on the planet, it appears to be limited to a few, by the looks of it, from where I stand. And I wonder if there will be a time when it could be just as easy as walking down the main street and saying, oh, well, there's a Chinese person, there's an Indian person, there's a South African person, there's a person from wherever, whether that's a possibility or not, so I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either. Okay. I think that, if you just look at what's happening internationally, people are sort of mainstream media, the black hats are letting out information about UFOs almost on a monthly basis, something new, and so I know they're getting the masses to accept that they are possibly aliens. Okay, so and that's what's got to happen. Otherwise, I guess you could frighten the hell out of so many people. So they didn't come. And you now get the CNN and BBC and other radio stations and newspapers are now headlining UFO sighted. Okay. And the military have filmed them. Okay, so like that's authentic. That's a good reason. And they have photos of a long time ago. Okay, but they're letting them out. Okay, they're starting. Why in the mainstream media? Okay, is it a distraction? What is it? Who knows? But at least the world population is starting to just accept that if it comes from the mainstream media, then, well, there's some truth there. There must be aliens around if they're talking about spotting aircraft.
Yeah, I wonder if there's some sort of, I don't know, for the want of a better word, like protocol around it, in the sense that, like, if you look at Zana, I think her name is, Inalatra, she seems to be at some of these discussions, but my observation is lately, a lot of the videos with her is her in either the planetary orbit or not physically on the planet itself, so.
Okay.
So I'm wondering whether there might be some, and whether it's just a matter of survival, you know, like physical survival, or what it is. But it seems to me that the interaction on the planet seems to have, you know, a time constraint associated with it somehow. You know, I mean, again, I don't know. It could well be that the person I walk down the street with or see on my morning walk could be from another galaxy. I mean, I don't know, you know, and I'd have no way of knowing, I don't think, you know, so.
Yeah. Are you saying that she, with the videos that you've seen, it appears to be off planet?
Oh, the last several, and they're quite open about it. Oh, you know, here's Sana, and she's been responding to questions, you know, and like, for example, there was a question the other day I saw her respond to. Someone said, I can't remember the exact nature of the question, but it was along the lines of, you know, is there any sort of proof that, you know, life on Mars and life on this planet or whatever in the past, that there were any survivors? And she just said, well, look in the mirror. You know, so
Okay.
you know, so there's, you know, just some of that sort of stuff. But, you know.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. 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 Okay. So it wasn't sort of stuff off planet.
Oh, but the video of her is she's in orbit, yeah, on a craft, yeah, somewhere.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a few there, and she'd be standing beside like a big porthole or something like that, you know, and you could see outside, and you could see, you know, images of the planet below, or, you know, whatever. So,
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there clearly seems to be a sharing of technology, and probably has been for a very long time, I guess, you know. I mean, there's plenty of examples of, even in ancient times, you know, with, you know, construction of stone, you know, buildings or whatever.
Yeah.
That clearly, you know, at the time would have been impossible to get the sort of accuracy that they were built with, you know. So, well, even the pyramids, I guess, in one sense, you know. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the thing that, you know, apart from the interesting curiosity associated with some of those things, but the deeper question for me is that, well, what does this mean? You know, what does it mean? You know, like, is it part of? I get the, you know, the big reset, or whatever you want to call it, in terms of the way that, you know, humanity operates and organises itself and the community and all that. So I get all that. But in terms of the for me anyway, the bigger questions around, you know, the other dimensions and the spiritual growth and some of those elements, you know, they're the sort of questions which occupy my mind. You know, it's like, well, you know, what does that mean? You know, do these beings have the same sort of possibilities and potential that I as a human have, or is it different, or are they, you know, something that can assist with my, you know, spiritual growth, or is it, you know, just all those questions? I don't know, because on everything that I've studied to date, I can't say that I can recall anything which necessarily points to some of those things. Although, having said that, I did watch a video there the other night of Sadhguru, of all people, and he was being interviewed about his book on, I don't think I've got it here anyway, on karma. And he just made the comment, and it was a bit of a passing comment, but it was enough for the person who was interviewing to sort of stop him in his tracks. He said, you can read this book today and then put it down, and, you know, things will be happening within you. And then you can read this book again in 6 months' time, and it will be like a new book.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess in some ways, like I've sort of had that view about even just like the Bible, you know, like through your own spiritual journey, you can read a passage, you know, 10 years ago,
Sure.
and 10 years later, you reread it and read it completely differently, you know, so.
But the reason is because your consciousness has risen. So it actually has a different resonance, those particular words with you. Definitely, that definitely happens. Yeah. So I understand what he's saying with regards to that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know. Well, there's lots and lots of questions and lots of possibilities to unfold from it for sure. Yeah, no, so I think it's, and I'm inclined, you know, to agree with you, just based, you know, reflecting very quickly on what you've been talking about. I mean, it's interacting with groups like that which help build our understanding and expand our views and cross-fertilize things and get us to think about things that we perhaps haven't thought about before. So no, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's just one aspect of our life, okay, and it's real for what reality is at the moment. But then we also, you know, there's no doubt in my mind that a lot of the aliens that are perhaps related to the Lemurians, okay, is that you know, the fifth dimension is right here. It's there, okay, and I'd love to speak to somebody who can just think himself into the fifth dimension spontaneously, and I guess we will find that, okay, in the right circles, and there are people, I'm convinced of it, for no other reason than I want to believe it, I guess, that they exist. So I think the aliens, for me, there's definitely a far more advanced race in some of the aliens, let's say the human aliens, okay, as opposed to the non-human aliens, although I can't imagine what a non-human alien is. You know, you think of reptiles and things like that, but or the reptilian race. They have got a lot, in my opinion, and I don't base my opinion on anything other than my own belief, and that is that they can help us through their consciousness, okay? But we have to reach some point as a planet, okay, before, you know, they can intervene, because of what Sadhguru says about karma. You know, you can't interfere with the planetary karma, especially when you can see ahead. You know, you don't have a time restraint to, you know, you can see, and you've got to just maybe encourage and maybe share a little bit here and there in order.
Yeah, I think that's sort of a fairly common theme, and that I sort of pick up anyway, is a lot of the spiritual development talk, and whether it's from Logos or Latra or Isha or whoever, a lot of the context around it now is about transcending, you know, transcending your physicality and, you know, transcending, you know, those sorts of limitations of mind and body and those things. So clearly that's the next stage of development. And a lot of the teachings and the practices around that are aimed directly and principally at that, about transcendence, you know, so.
Yeah. The question in my mind is, let's say the human race can't move or keep pace. Will the Earth automatically move on, and everybody, you know, will go with it, with sort of an enlightenment into a fifth dimension? Will people stay behind? Will there be like people living in a fifth dimension and people still living in a consumeristic society?
Well, I think one of the big questions for me, you know, goes around, you know, a lot of this idea of is, you know, like the spiritual path, and that's not the right word, so I won't use that. Is that the spiritual development is an individual process.
Mm.
But a collection of individuals who are spiritually developed also seem to have like a synergistic effect in addition to their own individual spiritual development.
Mm.
So you put a bunch of spiritually aware people together in a room, or perhaps on a planet, and the impact of it is greater than the collective of those individuals.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Mm.
Mm.
It's fascinating, and one that I think about every day. You know, I think about it all of the time. You know, you think about, oh well, you know, if only I had the right partner with me, or if only this, or if only that, or whatever. And the conclusion I come to, it's all nonsense. You
Yeah.
know, because it is, you know, the responsibility, you know, rests with me, and irrespective of who I interact with, you know, the nature of that interaction should be driven by a couple of contexts. I guess one context is that I work hard on my own spiritual development so that people will actually enjoy being near me, you know, or around me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and so I take complete responsibility for that. You know, so it's not about how others act, or I take complete responsibility for how people are when they're around me. The other context is that when I am interacting with someone around me who I find prickly or annoying or whatever,
Mm.
then the opportunity there is for that interaction to propel you further down the spiritual development.
Yeah.
Or if you choose, it will hinder you.
Yeah, I agree. Agree. Yeah.
You know, so and they're really the two big sort of contexts. But under both those contexts, the responsibility lies with one person and one person only.
Yeah. I agree, and it go further than that as well, because your example you gave is people interacting with you, but there are also those uh, people who don't. You're not aware that they're interacting with you.
Mm, mm,
Okay,
mm,
um, and because we're in a quantum universe. You're connected to that person who's thinking about you, and
mm,
that person could be draining you of energy.
mm, mm,
Okay, and the other way around, of course. So now it becomes, well, how do I protect myself from that type of influence, and can I?
mm,
Okay, do
mm,
I want to?
mm,
You
mm.
know, one doesn't know. Are we not just all helping each other make that tiny little next step forward in consciousness, or in high?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because if you look at the scientific research that's gone on around trees, you know,
That's your latest subject.
that's my latest subject, is that the scientists have proven, particularly for certain species,
Mm,
is that they are very, very social, um, you know, beings in their own right.
mm,
And the examples that they've given is that, for example, you know, the big redwood trees,
mm,
is that in a forest environment, you know, that you know, the paternal and the maternal trees, so the elders, so to speak, you know, who would literally be, you know, thousands of years old in the forest, provide a very much a nurturing and support role to all of the other redwoods around them.
mm,
And there's also this sort of modus of operandi sort of thing is that trees behave in a certain way within that environment. And they're saying that the behavior isn't as a result of the environment, it's something that comes from the trees themselves. And one of the experiments and studies that they did is they looked at redwood trees which had been put into like botanical gardens, for example, I don't know, in say in South Africa or in Australia or in Europe and those sorts of places. And those trees, you know, and this is me sort of paraphrasing and probably dramatically oversimplifying, but they're saying that the behavior of those trees is consistent with delinquent youth, and that they don't develop and grow consistent with how they would grow in the forest environment, surrounded by peers.
Yeah.
So the view is there's like a social isolation, and the way that the trees grow in the forest environment, not driven by the environment, but driven by the trees themselves, is they grow in a certain way and they develop branches in a certain way and they had, you know, they interact with the environment in a certain way. But the trees that are on their own don't. And invariably, because these trees don't follow like the community protocols or whatever, so to speak, they don't survive. They overindulge in terms of nutrients as youths. They in effect become fat and lazy, and because of those sorts of attributes, they get very huge trunks on them, not necessarily very tall, and they grow lots of big thick limbs down low, whereas in the forest they have virtually no limbs, you know, for like the first, you know, 60 meters of the trunk. And so all of these sort of differences, and the only thing they can put it down to is they're isolated. They don't know what, you know, don't know how to conduct themselves basically in the environments that they're in.
Okay, so how do you separate that from, let's say, an individual, maybe like yourself, for example, lives by himself and does everything, not everything, but, you know, is in a way separated from the community, living alone and so forth. Maybe you're a bad example, but
No, I think I'm a good example.
okay, you know, and yeah, so, you know, are you not saying that the social interaction and environment is essential to the tree growth and to the human growth? Okay, and that we need to get ourselves involved in the community, like in the forest, okay, in order to be more human and to be able to evolve, you know, the whole human race and not be, you know, selfishly take ourselves out of it because we won't grow properly like the trees.
Mm. And there's some really valid and appropriate points around that. My sense, however, is it's a bit more precise than that.
Okay.
And I think the precision that comes to my mind around it is it's not so much about what you plan for it to be, and it's not so much around some of the intention that you might want to create for yourself around it, but it's about having the precision to make yourself available and then responding to what shows up. And you know, they talk about, you know, God's perfect timing and, you know, some of those sorts of phrases that you'll hear. And even like from a gardening perspective, you know, you want the flowers to bloom, but going out there, pulling the shoots out of the ground to see how they're growing is not how you do it. It's about creating that atmosphere and that environment around yourself. And then when things do happen, that you don't go into those things with necessarily with a specific intention apart from being open and available to what's in front of you.
Yeah.
So sometimes I've thought to myself, oh, I haven't seen this person in my life. It used to be very, very, important person in my life, for like 10 years. I wonder how they're going, da, da, da. I wonder if I should give them a call, or I wonder if I should track them down, or da, 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 da. And then I think to myself, well, isn't that looking backwards? Like, isn't the more important thing about ensuring that I'm doing the work and doing the preparation and doing all of those things so that whatever does happen, I'm ready. And
Yeah. I agree. I mean, again, you're a good example, with what's happening tomorrow afternoon. Okay, you've left yourself open. Okay, you're going forward and something's coming to meet you.
Mm.
And I absolutely agree with that. You don't look over your shoulder and try and bring back the better parts of what you perceive as a better part of the past. Absolutely. Likewise with myself, I've been exposed to this Simon Parkes, and now I've been exposed to the local group, and who knows what happens next. I'll leave myself. It's arrived on my doorstep. Okay.
Well, I mean, you're the perfect case study. Like all of these things, like Get Set Up and all of those things, they happen because you were ready when they showed up.
Yeah, and absolutely go along with that. Yeah. And what is right for you shows up. Okay, I mean, not you, a person. What is right for a person, that shows up. So if somebody is not, let's say, it doesn't matter whether you're thinking about consciousness or raising consciousness or something. Whatever is right will arrive. I mean, I don't know. If you're a rapist, I guess, to take it extreme, you're going to be offered the opportunity for some more rapes, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, but I think, that's an interesting question, actually.
It is because you can't keep it one-sided. We're in a duality world. There's satanic and heavenly. There's good and bad.
And you're right. I guess that's that if you're making those choices, and like that's an extreme example, but in a more subtle sense, I can choose to be a prickly, angry person. Doesn't mean I'm a bad person, but I can just choose to be a prickly, angry person, or I can choose to be a person that people just want to be around you. They enjoy your company.
Things show up.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter. Okay, things show up to enhance that prickly person. Okay.
Well, it's right. I mean, there's the old saying, is that if the only tool in your toolkit is a hammer, then everything's going to look like a nail, isn't it? So.
Trust you to use a toolkit. Yeah, true. Yeah, interesting.
So, the other thing I just want to touch base with you on, to change the subject slightly, is you Get Set Up. I see you're doing some really fascinating sessions now.
Yeah, I'm glad. I really felt I wanted to send that to you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pleased you did.
Yeah. It's interesting. Now I'm busy. I also wanted to change the subject because I've got another subject to do. A couple before the 1st of July. And the one that I need to start on tonight is a subject they gave me called, let me get it right, spirituality and aging.
That's an interesting topic.
That's a fascinating topic, okay? Because, immediately you think, I think, apparently statistically, 84% of Americans are in a religion, okay? That's a big percentage, okay? 84% are in a Christian type of religion, okay? And very small percentages comparatively are in other religions. Then I think now, am I going to upset people by just talking my perception of spirituality? Do I have to somehow incorporate them? So my question to you, because you've helped me with a lot of my classes, okay, is give me some key factors on what your perception is, or what is spirituality.
Mm. Mm. Well, I mean, the things that sort of come to mind for me, and I say some of these things in the observation of that gratefulness forum that I participate in, which
Yes.
is overwhelmingly, a couple of exceptions, but overwhelmingly
Yeah.
American citizens,
Yeah. Great.
is for me a key factor around spirituality, because a lot of them talk about God and they talk about praying and they talk about what I would term as probably more a religious practice rather than a spiritual practice. They talk about those things in a certain way. But for me, and I guess part of how I interact in that forum, I try and encourage some people to think about a spiritual practice being one of connection. And connection is really about the environment.
Between what and what?
Well, the connection about between the environment in which we find ourselves. Because if I'm to make an observation about a lot of religious practice, it seems to be in a box over here somewhere.
Yeah, correct.
Whereas a spiritual practice is a holistic practice. It's about how you engage with the planet on which we walk. It's about how you relate to nature. It's about how you interact with others. It's about the energy and the atmosphere that you create in your home environment and your work environment and your social environments, and all of those sorts of things are it's not something that you talk about over here. It's something that flows out of you, not something that you aspire to, or God's up there, or it's something that just comes from within and like a wellspring and bubbles out of you, and I think that the context around aging, a lot of people might assume, oh, well, it's because you're getting old and, death is staring us in the face and, I'm suffering ailments and illnesses and things like that. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's part of it. I don't know. But I don't think it's the driver. I think the driver, in my sense, is the wisdom. And the wisdom, as we've talked about in the past, is the combination of experience and knowledge, because we all have our views, when we're young and, full of ideas and overconfidence and things like that. But as we go through life, we have these actual experiences, like, I mean, I'd like to try and illustrate that, like for the last, I don't know, maybe 20 years, I've always had this view about spiritual pathways. Well, I think it's nonsense now.
Yes.
It's just, and for me, I guess the sort of context which is sort of pervading my thinking now, which I think is a spiritual thing, is just that discipline and focus on that brutal level of honesty about things. So when I look at something or when I'm thinking about something, it's like it's the Plumstead methodology in 100%, full throttle. It's like, well, why?
Yeah.
Why? And it's really that sort of honesty and questioning that shapes my view about some really important issues for me. And so for me, that's a spiritual practice,
Okay. So you've dealt, let's say, with spiritual practice. How would you define an individual's spiritual core?
That's a really good question, because I guess, I mean, you and I know, like we've spoken before, with this question about, who am I really? and the who am I really, and the spiritual core for me, and the answer to that question is it depends where you look from. So if you're looking from it, put aside that you're on a screen and I'm on a screen for you, but assuming that, you know, like we had a cup of coffee in Perth together, and you were sitting on that side of the table and I was sitting on this side of the table, and we were talking about things in that coffee shop. And so your view of me, and when I say your view, Michael looking out and being open and available to Don, saw this person sitting, you know, about 3 feet away or a meter away, whatever you want to measure it, you know. But now that I'm sitting on the other side of the country, I don't know what the distance is between Brisbane and Perth. It's probably, I don't know, 5,000 kilometres, is it? I don't know, whatever the distance is. I can look at a picture of Perth and see Michael. Just because I can't see your face doesn't mean you're not there.
Yeah.
And the extension of that is I can go up to the moon and I can look at you and I'll see the planet, but it's still Michael because you're part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I can go to the next galaxy. Conversely, I could come up to you and I could stand, you know, 3 millimeters in front of your face, and your appearance will change, but you're still Michael.
So what's your core spirituality?
Well, my core spirituality is that I have to ask myself, well, who's looking, who's talking, who's interacting, and it's that whole you know idea, and I find it as an important idea from a communication perspective. Is it's face to no face, because I can't see this. So what I see is me disappearing in favor of you. Right. And that's a spiritual perspective. That's a spiritual call, because it's and so the opportunity and the invitation for me is to make myself completely available to you. And to do that, there's a whole lot of sort of things I need to drop and push aside, and if I choose to look at you from that core position, I'll be looking at you through divine eyes rather than through filtered rose-coloured glasses that I've built up over the last 60 odd years.
Okay, so you know, because of that quantum explanation that you've given, okay, where there is no answer to what you're saying, you just really are demonstrating that it's a quantum energy universe. And I would imagine that the soul is just again a factor of that quantum, you know, universe that is going to eventually be the person that's doing the looking, and the person that finally reaches the Godhead and dissolves into the Godhead and becomes one with God.
Well, that's increasingly becoming my experience.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a hard thing to communicate, but it seems to me that the soul really is that speck of antimatter, or however you want to describe it, but it's that speck of divinity, if you like.
Yeah.
You know, that is within us, and our ability to remove obstacles from it, because it's always there. It's just a matter of being open to it, and that's what a lot of spiritual practice is really about. It's that opening, awakening, all of those sorts of words, which is about removing any obstacle to it, you know, and falling deeply in love with it as a reality in your own life, not as an idea, not as a concept, but as an actual experience.
Yeah.
For you, you know?
Yeah, I like the word a speck of divinity. Okay. A speck of God. Okay.
Well, you know, the East Indians have this word. You know, when they greet people, it's like, you know, namaskaram. And the meaning of that word is the divinity within me acknowledges the divinity within you. You know, so,
Yeah.
and that's a beautiful idea.
I like that, the divinity within you, and you. That could be part of my spirituality class. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's a beautiful idea. You know, that you could sit there on a public bus or a train or on a park bench, and just as you gaze upon people as they are either sitting around you or walking past you or whatever they're doing, just having the conscious thing, okay, well, the divinity within me acknowledges the divinity within you, and the divinity within me acknowledges the divinity. I mean, what a wonderful way to.
Yeah, but you could replace that word divinity with spirituality.
Absolutely,
You know, the spirituality within you, okay, and you get this spirituality within me, okay. I like it. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think it's an interesting question. You know, if you pose to someone to say, "Well, tell me about the spirit within you," what does that actually mean for you? You know, like.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, for me, the sort of emotional response to it is joy and smile and, you know, a wagging tail. You know, it's all of those things.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing. You know, I mean, there are certain people you look at, you know, that you sort of think, but when you look at them through the eyes of you know, the spirit within me acknowledges the spirit within you, and that even though I don't like what you've done to me or what you stand for or whatever, you can't help but smile. You know, you just can't.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, thanks for that. I think
it's going to be a tricky one for you to communicate, because that's a really powerful topic, isn't it? You know?
Isn't it a powerful topic? And I just love that it's thrown in my court. Okay.
Well, I was going to say, and I can't think of another person that I think is going to absolutely master it. I really can't.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks very much. Yeah, maybe that's a good place to end tonight.
Oh, I think finish on a high. Absolutely.
Yeah, really.
That's really great. That's really great. Yeah. So, Sunday, did you want to go back into that other forum, or did you want to catch up on another day, or what? You know.
Okay. They do a Wednesday as well. I just can't recall what time. It's not in the evening. It's during the day sometime, and I might just give that a try. I think it's like 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock on a Wednesday. So I'm not going to do it this Sunday. Okay. So we'll meet this Sunday, and it won't interfere with next Wednesday either. But I think that's what I'm going to do, and I'm also going to check out the Telegram. I'm going to also check out the meetup groups and just get a feel of what's going on. Okay.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to be flexible around those things, because I think they're important things for you at the moment. So.
Okay, I appreciate that. You know, if we changed, let's say, the Sunday evening one, then, you know, would there be another day that would be a Friday or a Saturday or something?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, we could do something. Probably a Saturday or something like that if you wanted to. Yeah.
Okay, but not for now. Okay, I'll just say thanks for that. It just gives me some space to think, and how I move forward with it. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yep, it is.
Okay, well, you have a good few days between now and Sunday, and I'll talk to you then.
Yeah, great stuff, man. Thanks.
Okay, then.
Great evening.
Okay. See you now.
Bye.
Bye.